buenas noches, Miami. Welcome, like every Wednesday at 8 to a new episode of the Goon Squad. Today I got with me my brother, father of the network, Bobby Melendez. What's up, Bob?
What's up, man? How you doing?
And we roll out the Goon red carpet to the voice of Miami sports, Mr. Will Manso.
What's up, guys? Good to be on, man. Good to see you guys.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm not even going to waste any time. We got you here. You're a busy man, both private life, public life, everything. So you are the sports director in Local 10 for over 20 years. I tell Bobby this, every major sport event you associate with Will Manso. When he's there, he's live, he's covering everything. He's been there for probably the most significant Miami sports moments, aside from the undefeated season for the Dolphins. So you have been in it all. I want to start off right away asking you, what is the most iconic moment of your career while you're working? You're seeing it live and it hits you like, holy crap, I just witnessed this. I think we froze. Man, we froze Will Manso. Bobby, can you hear me too or no?
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you good. Yeah.
We lost Will. Oh, there we go. What's crazy? We got Will and he's gone. We'll make do until it's some little technical difficulty. We're good.
All right, we got me. Do we got me now?
There we go.
We got it.
I've been to all the significant moments and somehow gotten Wi-Fi. Like, I can't get Wi-Fi. Spare me, though. Alex knows this. I'm moving into a new apartment, so, we're connected to the Wi-Fi and all that stuff, so we should be good. All right. I'm sorry we screwed up the top of the show. Wow moment. And I don't know if you guys – 2006 NBA Finals. Like, it's not even close because – remember, I got to Miami in 1985, or South Florida. My parents moved in 1985. I got the job at Channel 10 in 1999. And, so when I got here as a kid, there was no Miami Heat. And I remember seeing the Heat come into existence and the excitement of, man, we got our own team and watching the lean years. And to be there in Dallas, in that locker room, the Heat win the championship, right? And then, Alonzo Mourning in tears, Dwayne Wade hugging the trophy in tears, Pat Riley throwing cards up in the air, cards flying everywhere, cards, remember those cards that he put in that
the 15,
bowl?
yes.
15 strong. So
15 strong.
They get the chills. I'm not even kidding you. I'm getting the chills right now thinking about that moment because number one is I was a Heat fan, right? I remember the inception of the Heat when they started. And number two is in the moment, I knew it was in the middle of history, and it's not often that you get that. Like, we can cover a lot of events, and you never know that at that moment you're covering history. So that was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Bob. Alex, you call him. Wait, you have to start it off because you've been telling me forever, but you talked about it more this week.
Yeah.
What do you call Will? What do you call Will for?
I call Will the Udonis Haslam of Miami sports journalism. He's going on 20 plus years. He has more on-court time than UD, but he's as key role. And it's funny when you think Miami sports, like the Miami sports media, you think really of two people: Dan Le Batard, who I love, and then Dan Le Batard is more of like I think of him as the writer, but then the voice automatically. I'm not taking away any of the writing skills, but the voice is Will Manso. Like everything I remember with, like you said, the Marlins in 2003, the Heat in 06, the Big Three era. Like you hear, I remember going to Local 10 and seeing Will Manso on the streets, wherever it was, in the game, just with the fans. And obviously, as fans, you connect to that.
No, you guys, I always think back to that era. During the Big Three era, I remember, I had it written down, and I could be off a game or two, but era, which is an NBA regular season, right? That's basically, and I attended every game. So I think back to that stretch, like
wow.
While that moment 06 was the best, and look, as fans, even like you guys remember the Big 3 years well, obviously as fans, just every game was a rock concert. Every game was a show. Every game was the most important thing in sports that night. I mean, we're going to live, hopefully, a long life, and we will never see that again. We'll never see that again over a 4-year stretch where one team dominates the news cycle the way that team did.
Yeah.
and it was across the board. And now you said, well, like you said, you've been a actual member of the Miami Heat organization. You see the class out that they are, and I just want to ask your feedback in regards to the news that came out today with Robert Sarver, the owner of the Suns. LeBron already tweeted out, and we all know LeBron is the voice of the NBA players. So whatever he says, and he's close to James Jones, and James Jones is GM for the Suns. What is your take in regards to the Sarver situation, in regards to he possibly being forced to sell? Is this close to the Sterling debacle that cost the Clippers, or is it even worse?
I mean, it's got to be up there, right? You know, anytime the league gets involved to suspend an owner, I mean, here we are in town. We could parallel it to what happened with Stephen Ross, which, you know, the NFL found a few things wrong, and Ross basically got told, like, hey, stay away a couple months. You know,
go on your yacht. Just go on your yacht. Clutch goes, thank God for having Mickey, Arison, and Riley. That's true. We don't know what we have, man. We don't know what we have.
When, you know, look, I'm not the kind of person to tell you that the Heat organization is perfect. Obviously, look, they've had bad draft picks or bad free agent signings. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, everything the Heat touch turns to gold. But the standard, the way they operate, the way they do things is always with the best of the organization in mind. Doesn't always work, but that's the difference. I think it separates the Heat from other teams is that they have a plan. It's worked for 25 years, and they're not changing that plan. When Pat decides one day to step down, which will probably be like the year 2050, they'll go to the next step, you know. So I respect that. And then you see other organizations like, you know, the perfect example with the
some more technical difficulties.
Some more tech. That's where he's moving. And I know the internet connection sucks, man. Here in today's weather, Miami's horrible.
It's all good.
It's horrible.
The weather. I blame the weather, damn it.
That's what it is.
I sent Bobby pictures today, and I'm like, we were drenched, man. It hasn't stopped raining, Bob, over here.
All day.
Well, before I let Bob go into Dolphins, I want to ask one thing in regards to the Heat. We've talked endless about the Heat this summer. Now we kind of go into like a dead period. Training camp is in less than 2 weeks. There's been a lot of rumors. A lot of players became available that weren't going to be available. A player moved. Some free agencies. I want to take it from you. Well, what is your opinion in regards to the Heat's improvements this offseason? How do you see the Heat going forward this year? Like, what do you take from this offseason, really?
Yeah. I think like any Heat fan, right? Sometimes when things are quiet and you don't make an impactful move, you're kind of disappointed. And I think when fans tell me like, oh, it's disappointing that they didn't make a move. I'm like, you know what? I feel it. I feel you. It's not that I think the Heat are going to take a step back and be a bad team. Not at all. But you expect that a team is going to make a move, maybe an impact player, especially the Heat. But the guys they were searching after, the things they were trying to do just didn't come through. Like, you know, the Durant thing fell through. Donovan Mitchell, I'm not sure how highly involved they were or the amount of commitment. To make that big move. But I think it's okay to say that running it back isn't sexy. Running it back isn't the kind of stuff that's going to make you jump out of your seat. Especially, guys, the reality is this is a run it back, right? But there's a difference. They don't have PJ was kind of the heart and soul of that team. So when you call it a run it back, but you have a key part of that, not only gone from your team, but joining one of your competitors in Philadelphia, you can't call it a true run it back. Now, I know what the Heat need. They expect Tyler to keep improving. They expect Bam to keep improving. They expect a full year of Victor at full strength being, you know, closer to what we know of him. They expect Duncan to now, on paper, it's not as sexy than saying, hey, we got this player, signed them, and he's our new four, he's our new star. That didn't happen this offseason.
And I want to thank Kev for life for listening, all our listeners. And he's very excited. He wants to ask a few questions about McDaniel. I'll let Bobby handle it. But I'm going to ask you one that he asked, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Okay. Kev for life goes, your thoughts about Cleveland. Is there a move that makes them a legit top 5 in the East upon – oh, I think there are top 5. They're still a year away. But, Will, what do you think?
I think they're right on the cusp of the top 5, right? Like they may not be there, but one thing we forgot about Cleveland is that they were a playoff team last year, you know, a team that was growing. Look at, they got some links. There's anything that gives the Heat, but I think of it from the Heat perspective, right? He has a problem with long teams, Toronto being one of them. There is the Heat don't have that true big. I mean, Bam is a Mr. Everything. And, getting Dwayne Dedmon back is nice, but the Heat don't have that front court size. We'll see what Amir becomes if he keeps developing. But I love what Cleveland was doing before they got down to the So now you add an all-star 25-point-a-game scorer, and you really got to think that they are a team that for the next 3 or 4 years is going to be one of the teams kind of flirting with testing other teams and getting up in that spot in the East. Is it this year? Probably not. They're probably a year away. But if those guys develop quickly, which they certainly have the talent to, no reason this team couldn't be top 5 and make some noise in the playoffs.
Good. Bob, I'll take it to you.
So sticking with Miami, though, the Heat, because the East has obviously gotten better. And the Heat have talked, like you said, running it back. But is there any type of move that won't cost the Heat too much, obviously, whether it's Duncan or pick or whatever, that you could see or that you would like for Miami to do to help address maybe that power forward position? Or do you think they're okay with the rookie?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think they're looking. I think there's interest. I know that everybody's heard about Jay Crowder. People heard that name for a while. And other, names pop up. I think the Heat are going to remain flexible. I really think, guys, that what they're doing is a run it back with like a little what do you call asterisk, right? Like run it back with until something else comes up, whether it's right by the trade deadline or whatever. I don't think this team is focused on running it back and seeing the same exact team come to playoffs, in the spring. I really think they're running it back to start the season. And that's why when Heat fans panic and they tell me, well, oh my God, they didn't do anything this season. I tell them, look, let the team, the team's going to be competitive and good. Let them enter the season. As it goes on, they're going to look and say, man, we may have to do something else. Where do we need to do it? If Duncan's playing well, whatever, maybe you can dangle them out there in some other area. Again, Tyler is their biggest asset. I don't think they want to give up Tyler for just a piece. It has to be a significant piece. And the question is that significant piece really going to come along this season, within the season before the deadline? I don't know. Things happen. The NBA. The NBA is crazy. Those things happen now and then. But as it stands right now, we talk 2 weeks before training camp. There's nothing on the horizon that I see of that significance that'll get Heat fans like saying, yeah, that's the big movie.
Do you think they extend Tyler Hero?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I think there's a thought that they would handle it the way that the Suns handled DeAndre Ayton, where you go into the season and say, hey, just let us do this flexibility. But Tyler's earned it, man. I mean, I know people are going to nitpick about Tyler's game, about his defense, about his ability, his length, and things that he can't. He can't get longer, he can't get taller. I mean, but his ball is improved, facilitating is improving. God knows that he can score. I mean, he can score and he can keep getting better, and he's still young. I am in the school of thought that I like Tyler on this team more than I like Tyler on another team.
Another team.
But I also understand that to get, you got to give. And if the Heat are going to get something big, Tyler's probably likely the piece that they're going to have to move.
And Bob, I'm going to interrupt just before we go. The one thing that concerns me with Hero, that a lot of people don't think about, he could, if you don't sign him to an extension now, he can actually end up costing you more. Kind of like the situation that happened with Phoenix and Aiden. Because Aiden probably would have signed the year before for a lower, and they basically told him, go find a contract. And they basically had to match whatever he signed with Indiana officially, and it took them out of the running of any possible trades. So one last go.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, I think a Tyler deal is on the horizon. I don't know that for a fact. Obviously, I'm not behind closed doors with Pat Riley and Andy, but I think that's something they're going to have to look at, because now that no big move happened, that's kind of the next step in this, in this process.
I tell you this from a fan. Me and Bobby are talking about this, and you probably see it up close. Just the fact what you just said, Pat and Andy, and I know it's the whole team, Chad, Adam, Spo. You have, as a fan, I have so much confidence when I hear that, Pat and Andy, because they're going to do what's best for the organization now and then. And I don't think a lot of teams have that per se, where you have the continuity for 20 plus years of the same team intact, and we've rebuilt, we've rebranded the franchise over and over and over. So that's something Miami, I think, fans take for granted.
We're spoiled.
We're spoiled.
I mentioned Stephen Ross earlier. Look at Bruce Sherman with the Marlins. Jeter lasted 5 years. We dealt with Yusuf Loria, which, God bless. Loria, he was a wild man, spending money, but he didn't know what to do. He was impatient. He never got there.
That's true.
So we are spoiled, and we can't overlook that. Again, to my original point earlier, it's not always perfect. Nobody is. Every move Pat, I feel okay saying that every move Pat Riley says does not turn into gold. Every move does. You're going to have your misses, but God knows he's had a lot more hits than misses during his 20-plus years with the Heat.
No, absolutely. Right. And I'll touch the Marlins later, but Bob, I'll let you go on so we could talk some Dolphins, man.
No.
Go. It's all you.
The conversation either way. I want to say something about the Giants very quick because, Will, you've been covering the sports, and of course you cover the Dolphins, but you're a Giants fan. So you got Brian Dable. Everybody's trying to connect him to the Dolphins because of Tua and all that whatnot, but Dable goes to the Giants. Daniel Jones is your quarterback. They, beat the Titans. They upset the Titans. Everybody's talking about McDaniel with the 4th and 7, but Daboll did something pretty ballsy too. So before we get into the Dolphins, because I know Dolphin fans want to talk about that, but tell me about your Giants. How did you feel about Daboll hire? How do you feel about his first week? How are you feeling about them this season?
I mean, look, anything as a Giant fan who I always tell people, people like, it's tough to be a Giant fan the last, 7, 8, 10 years. But I also have 4 Super Bowls in my lifetime, so I can't complain too much.
That's true. That tops everything.
Distant after a certain point, but
that was a jab, I think. No,
that was a little.
Crazy is the Giants have been the worst team in football the last 4 years. It's nuts, the worst, and that's not me saying. That's legitimate record-wise. They've been worse than anyone. They've been a terrible team. Gettleman ruined them. The picks, the salary cap's a mess. I was so excited about the win against the Titans. They hadn't won an opening game in 6 years. They hadn't been over 500 since 2016, whatever it was.
Wow. Jesus.
At any point in the season. So the fact that they won a game and they went on the road, but this is still not a good team. They're in a massive rebuild. They have a lot of things they need to do. Unlike the Dolphins, which I know we're going to talk about, the Dolphins are post-rebuild and now have a lot of weapons and pieces and moving forward. The Giants, I love the Brian Dable hiring. I think he's got the right attitude. I love the guts, like you mentioned, or as what's his name? As Tyreek Hill says, the Coco Hones.
Go.
I love what he showed on that 2-point conversion. But I also know it's going to be a long year. They'll probably at best win 6-7 games, but hopefully head in the right direction.
That's awesome. So talking Miami. And I know Alex was going to bring up McDaniel, but yeah, I mean. So far, your meetings with him, how does he seems like somebody, obviously we watch him on screen and all that, but seems like somebody who brings a different type of energy to the room. The players seem to have taken a liking to him in a different way than they would a normal coach. I just, I saw he's had a couple interviews with Lepetard, and I just love how open he is. And he talks about not just the players, and he tries to sound smarter than everybody else. He talks about the people in the building, and so I want to get. So from my point of view, looks like an awesome hire. And I had my doubts because I wanted a veteran coach for the Dolphins. I was sick of new hires, Gase, Philbin, Florida, So, but when it got closer and became more of a reality, researching this guy, I mean, obviously. I don't know, 20 years in the league, I think it was, assistant and all that, and more of the staff he was going to hire. What is your early assessment of him? Obviously, personally, you've been interacting probably with him, but also on the outside, as now you're a Giants fan, so you're not a biased opinion. So, What's your unbiased opinion on McDaniel?
Well, as a person, look, as a media member, you want a guy he's a good soundbite, he's personable, he's approachable, he's available. And I like that about him. Now, the fan doesn't care about that, how a coach treats the media. You just care about winning, which is what you should care as a fan about. Is this team built the right way? Does this guy have a plan? I don't know what's going to happen long-term with the Dolphins, but I will say this. In dealing with Mike McDaniel and being around him, he seems to have a plan. And as a fan, that's all you could ask for, right? Like, he's a guy who's got a vision and a plan for the way he wants his program to run, the way he wants his offense to run, the way he wants his team to run. There's accountability, but there's also, and Tua talked about it this week, and he's talked about it many times. He is a very approachable guy. He's not that kind of coach who has the door closed and says like, hey, don't come into my office unless I call you in my office. Don't look at me. Don't bother me. I got too many things to do. What's cool about going to practice, especially in training camp, we were allowed to go to these practices, is that he would walk around practice. He's coaching, he's looking around particular units, but he'll stop and he'll put his arm around Tua and he'll talk to him for a minute. And then he'll go over and look at Jerome Baker and he'll talk to him for a minute. And we'll stop by and we'll look at X and we'll talk to him. And I think players appreciate the level of one-on-one time and saying, hey, my door is open. It doesn't have to be about football. We could talk about anything. And I know that's kind of cliche because in the end, you really are judged by wins and losses. But I think as a coach, to really resonate with a team, right, and to really get the full work and effort from your players, you got to connect with them. And I think he does a good job of connecting. So right off the bat, guys, my first impression of Mike McDaniel is he's got a plan, he connects with his players, and now let's see what that connection leads to, because I think he's got everything laid, the foundation laid out to be a successful team.
Bob, I'm going to ask one question before we go on.
Yeah.
Especially with McDaniel. But I was a big fan of McDaniel. I know when the rumors started coming that he might be looked at, that he might be interviewed. And I told Bobby, that's why he's laughing.
You liked, okay, but be truthful here. It's not like you knew about it. You liked his picture, just like most people on Twitter. You saw a picture where you look like that IT student, and then you're like, oh, Bobby, he texted me, Bobby, I want this guy as my head coach. I'm like, what the hell?
I watched all his press conferences, the Mac Jones moment. I watched everything with McDaniel. And I'm like, what I saw is something that I envisioned as when I play sports. You wanted a coach to also be a human being, because sometimes the coaching, the athletic profession becomes almost robotic. You have to perform. But we forget that these people, even with the Heat and Kyle Lowry, there are personal situations in players' lives that do affect their on-court performance, on-field performance. And Mike McDaniel looks, just from the outside, before you hired him, he looks like he's rooted. He never forgets where he came from, his upbringing within the league, because he's literally started from the bottom and worked his way up little by little by little. And I find it so refreshing. And not a knock on Brian Flores. I don't know how, from the outside in, obviously, Brian Flores didn't look that approachable. He came from the Belichick coaching tree. Very just direct answers. I understand he rebuilt the defense. I personally, I've talked to Bobby. I don't think he set the foundation for Tua to succeed. I think this is the first year of a real tool evaluation, see how much he can go.
Though. Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is in regards to the way he handled Tua as a human being also, and even with a Fitzpatrick, if you're going to start Fitzpatrick, don't pull Tua and start Tua and then pull him for Fitzpatrick, put him back in, things of those nature. I feel McDaniel is the perfect person to manage this team, this persona, the expectations. And what I love is he's probably the smallest guy in the room, but he has the biggest plan there. And like Tyreek Hill said it, he has los cojones. Like he will do what he wants to do. He believes in himself, and I love that.
To your point on Tua, that's the most important part, right? Like whoever was getting this job had to make sure Tua reached his full potential. And if Tua falls flat and it doesn't become the player people thought he was going to be or the Dolphins want him to be, I don't think it's Mike McDaniel's fault. At that point, you look at Tua and say Tua could handle it. Because if you can't handle a tough guy and you can't handle the guy that has open ears and open arms and there for you, then maybe you got to look in the mirror. Now, I will say this. With that said, I've been a big Tua fan since he got here. I think people try to compare him to much other quarterbacks, and it's unfair. You know, now with the Justin Herbert, dialogue, he's always going to be compared to Justin Herbert. And every time I say that, somebody will tweet or say to me like, "Whoa, look over Justin Herbert." Yeah. And then again, Herbert is like a modern age Dan Marino. He's got a bazooka for an arm. He's got a high football IQ. I think it's okay to say that Justin Herbert is better than Tua. I also think it's okay to say that Justin Herbert is probably exceeded the expectations of most people when he came into the league. I, as a Giant fan, right, remember the year before he got drafted, Herbert was expected to be the number one or two pick.
Yep.
And he decided to go back to school. And that's the year the Giants took Saquon. The rest is history. But point being, Justin Herbert decided to stay in the draft, and it almost hurt him. He came back without the hype, and the next year he kind of slid. What did he go? 6th overall, 7th, whatever it was after 6.
Yeah.
Which, if you have a redraft of any draft of the last 5 years right now, I mean, you're taking Justin Herbert number 1 in a heartbeat. But nobody knew that. Like if you knew that, you would have taken him. So it's unfair to Tua and to what you were saying about McDaniel. McDaniel's the right guy, I think, what Tua needs now to reach his potential, and now it's on Tua to reach that potential.
And before I go, Bob, I'll take care of this one. This is for you and Will. I'll put him. I'll put it on the screen. And thanks, Cap for life. He's a big fan. Will, do you think the Miami Dolphins are going to pick up Tua's 5th-year option? And Bob, after Will responds, it's all yours.
Well, Cap, the honest answer is this year will tell us that answer. It will, because I look at it again. I hate to compare it to the Giants, but being someone that's the other team I follow along with the Dolphins. And Daniel Jones, his year 3 was the, hey, can he figure this out? And then they're like, are we going to pick up his option? Are we going to do this? Are we going to time down? And it's one of those things where you got to really start game planning. At some point, if you don't know your guy's the guy, you got to move on because quarterbacks now are 30 million plus, right?
Yes.
So if Tua's really the guy, Tua's going to get an enormous contract at some point in the next couple of years. I think this is the year that tells us that, guys. And I hate to give you like a deflecting answer because it seems like I'm kind of like saying, I don't want to.
True. It's
true. But it's true. It's true. It's accurate.
Yeah. No, it's, but I think it's right on the money. I think your answer is right on the money. I think it's a wait and see, especially now that they got all the weapons. We'll ask that. I guess that's a fair one. I know, and I think we as fans, as you say, there's desperation about being good, great, and obviously there's, like you said, especially with the Heat fans, in general, just Miami fans. I mean, it's not a knock; it's just true. If you look at Twitter and you follow it, a lot of them are spoiled. They just want something to happen. With the Heat, that was one of some of our debates. It's like if the Heat don't do anything, then Riley needs to retire, and this guy, and it's like give it time.
Riley's sleeping. It's like, come on, relax, guys.
But with Tua, I think you're absolutely right. The one thing I noticed, and I was one of those people when people were tanking for Tua, I would say full disclosure, when it was coming out, was I was about drafting Herbert. I wanted to get Herbert because, he didn't have the weapons yet. He showed things. And when the Dolphins drafted Tua, I got his jersey. I said, I'm going to support. He's the quarterback. I don't think whether you believe he's the guy or not as a fan, there's no question, as you brought up, and Alex has said, that the Dolphins did him no favors in those 3 years so far. No favors at all. Despite what your eye test might say since he's played, everything else. The one thing I found that was awesome, in my opinion, was as soon as he was hired, when they were doing that little social media clip of him on the airplane, McDaniel, and he was talking to Tua and kind of hyping him up, and just had a big smile on his face. I mean, that was cool. That was encouraging because that's something that he lacked. And I think you made a great point that, I thought, okay, now if there's something there, if he's going to become – he doesn't need to be Justin Herbert. He doesn't need to be Joe Burrow. He doesn't even need to be none of those guys. He just has to protect the football, take advantage of the weapons that he has, and that's going to be good enough because this team is talented enough. But if he can't do it with this coach, like you say, having his back and being the way he is, I agree with you. Then it's like, okay, then he can't. He's not the guy, But what is your, you had week one. 104 passer rating, 270 yards, a touchdown, no picks, couple minor errors here and there, brain farts if you want to call them. But besides obviously knowing the Dolphins have done him no favors, what's your unbiased opinion of Tua as an NFL quarterback?
I think he's got the potential to be a top, 12, 15 quarterback in the NFL. I think that you say to yourself, could he be a top 10? It really depends what you're looking at. Are you looking at prototypical size and arm strength? Obviously, Tua's not that. But are you looking? Drew Brees wasn't that either, and Drew Brees turned out to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I hate comparing him to Drew Brees because, again, it goes back to what we were talking about Herbert. And Herbert's only been in the league a few years. You don't want to put it like Tua, if he's not Drew Brees, he's a failure. Tua's the left Brees. It doesn't work that way. But I guess what I'm saying is you can't make Tua what he's not, right? He doesn't have a bazooka for an arm. He's not 6'5". I get it. But what he is accurate. What he is smart. What he is I think he gets the game. I think things have to slow down for him. I think that's part of McDaniel's offense. I think you're seeing glimpses of it. There is that, as you mentioned, Bobby, the one or two boneheaded decisions. Because none of the decisions he made ended up costing the Dolphins opener. But there were a few decisions he made that could have cost him.
Yes.
And people every quarterback has that. You're right. Every quarterback has it. But some guys can get away with it more because of their physical abilities. Patrick Mahomes can throw sidearms while he's running down the field sideways with his head turned the other way because he's got incredible skills. Tua can't do that. So his skill set means he has to be really protecting the ball and smart with the ball. He does that in Mike McDaniel's offense with all those weapons you talked about, that they've given him. And Tua Tagovailoa can be a top quarterback in the NFL. Again, I don't know if you guys want to call it top 10, top 12, top 8. But point being, when the numbers are all there, he can have you 30 touchdowns, maybe only throw 8, 9 picks, have a 100 QB rating. Pretty damn good, right? You take that right now if you can sign up for it. I think he's got that kind of potential.
That's awesome. And on your outlook for the Dolphins this season, there's a lot of hype. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, they traded for Tyreek, signed Terran Armstead, even though Armstead now there was injury concerns, and now he has, I think, turf toe. Austin Jackson's out, so offensive line is still concerned. But everything Miami has done, you're covering the team, or you're in that, you're in there. What's your feelings on this team? What's the expectation for you? Where do you see this team going? Is it a playoff, getting into the playoffs? Is it a playoff win? Is it short of the playoffs?
Well, I had them preseason 11-6, and I still, I mean, they played 1 week, they won. I still have them 11-6. I think this is a team. But the funny thing is, guys, is that of all the times the Dolphins, here they are, they're building, they get Tyreek Hill, they got Waddle last year, get a new coach who looks like a good fit with Tua, had the defense left over from Brian Flores, which is damn aggressive and good. But then they're in an AFC that's stacked. Like even
That's it.
Up and down the AFC, there are 6, 7, 8 teams that are really good that would probably be better than a lot of teams in the NFC. That would be you might have the top 4 or 5 teams in the league in the AFC, and that is a lot. That's a lot to handle. It's a lot to deal with. Winning. Winning.
There we go.
Winning.
I'm like, we lost them again.
Playing well is obviously important. They're going to have some tough games. This next stretch of 3 weeks is going to be brutal, to see what they can do. I peg the Dolphins. If they can be 2-2 after 4 games, look out. If they can be 2-2 and healthy after 4 games, look out. Because I think that they get themselves in a position where they can get to that 11-win mark, which might be what it takes to get to the playoffs. Do I think the Dolphins are a Super Bowl team? I've read people say this is the sleeper team in the AFC. On paper, I think they have the talent to make a run. The problem is the juggernaut they got to deal with in the AFC, man. It's asking a lot in a year 1 of a head coach with the way the AFC is stacked to think the Dolphins can make a Super Bowl run. But win a playoff game, get in the playoffs, be one of the more entertaining teams and teams that are rising in the league. Sure, I think with health and Tua's development, absolutely.
I'm gonna bring in Clutch for a second. He's the voice of God. We've never seen him, but you always hear him. Clutch, what do you have in mind, Clutch?
What's up? Here's a prediction for you guys, because I know how everything gets on Twitter. Around week 4,
Okay.
the sky's going to be falling on Twitter. I'm pretty sure this is going to be happening because you got the Ravens, the Bills, and then you have the Bengals, right? So if we get to 1-3, the sky's going to be falling. McDaniels is going to be out the door to some people, and Tua needs to be benched for Skylar Thompson. It's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen right now.
Yeah,
but I think the stretch gets a lot easier after that, and I think that's where Miami catches up and makes their run for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Well, I mean, if Miami with the hiccups, if Miami, or let's say we're talking Tua, if he does what those little hiccups that, yes, there was no turnovers, but what could have been, he does that against Baltimore or Buffalo or Cincinnati, they're going to make him pay, and yeah, there could be a 1-4 team. So I don't know about Mike McDaniel, but yeah, I think you're right on the Tua comment that fans will be pushing for it. Talking about Skylar Thompson, the MVP of the preseason. I mean, what were your thoughts on that with the fans? And I mean, what and your actual thoughts as a fan of football on Skylar Thompson's performance in the preseason?
Round pick who looks like he could actually play in the NFL, especially at the quarterback position. You got to be excited. And I don't know what his ceiling is, what he could be if he could truly be a starter in the NFL. I'll tell you what, I feel pretty comfortable he's going to be a good backup. So that alone, a 7th round pick that you get, and he's a legitimate NFL backup. And given all the problems that quarterbacks have with health, you look around the league. I mean, again, I go back. Remember last year's Giants? Do you remember who started for the Giants last year? Giants-Dolphins game?
No. Mike Glennon?
Yes. For the Giants. So you look around the league with backup quarterbacks. So if Skylar Thompson just becomes a good backup and you got him in the 7th round, that's a hell of a pick. Now, there's the question, could it be more? There's something about him, right? That's, I don't know. He gives me that vibe where he's just exciting. He can make plays. And we've seen guys throughout the year. The guy I thought of when I saw him play the first time, as far as he reminded me of Jake Plummer. Remember Jake Plummer? The Broncos?
Yeah,
yes.
Broncos.
He retired early, man. Wow.
Snake was making plays, and he didn't always have the most talent or strongest arm, but he was just smart and flying around. Skylar Thompson has this little knack of putting the ball in the right places. Again, our sample size is preseason games against third stringers. I get it. But that doesn't change the way he plays the game. And I like that. My thought is, I think they got themselves a keeper, whether that means it's a backup, a potential starter, or trade bait to another team. We'll wait and see. But I think he's a guy who sticks.
I think that's a great point, because I would say that about Skylar. One thing that stood out to me about him, and I know people were saying that after the games, it was like, oh, he's facing 2nd, 3rd stringers, whatever. But there were plays, there were throws that he was making that, I don't care if it's 2nd, 3rd stringers, JV, high school football, whatever. There were throws that he was making that were very impressive of that type of quarterback. People say Reed Sennett, nothing like that at all. And also the way he carried himself on the field. There was the one that stands out to me was the
he was like a veteran.
He threw that. Yeah, the Saquandre White, right before he threw a touchdown to White, White was out of place and he was not going off, but putting him in his place. I mean, like, that's a veteran quarterback. I kind of called it like it was Fitz magic to me. The way the way he played, they were like ballsy plays, but he was making them. So I think you're right. I think Miami found, if not a starting caliber, long-term potential backup, a very good backup quarterback in the
very
NFL.
league. It's almost like, a theory. You got to have 2 running backs. You got to have 2 quarterbacks. Maybe not at the same skill level, but you got to have a quarterback you can plug and play in case that starter goes down. And I think you'd feel pretty good as time goes on and Skylar learns the system more, that he could be that guy.
And I remember I told Bobby this when I saw him play. I understand we signed Teddy Bridgewater, a security blanket, but the moment you saw Skylar play, I'm like, and I told him, like, if anything happens to Tua, I don't wish anything bad on Tua. If anything happens to Tua, I would prefer putting Skylar in over Teddy Bridgewater. I understand, and I know Sean Payton talking about Teddy Bridgewater, and he's an effective quarterback, and I understand the system, but just on the eye test, us as fans, because that's what we are, I would be more intrigued with Skylar in this offense than ever seeing Teddy out there. And like I said, even Clutch says it. Does that make Teddy expendable? Do you think Teddy will be moved during the season? Will?
I don't, only because I just think given Tua's health, I think this is going to be a competitive team. And given Tua's inability to stay healthy early in his career, there was always a game or two, a situation that, there is questions about Tua's health. Because I think the Dolphins are going to be good, I think you want to turn to a guy who's got experience. I think if the Dolphins were to rebuild and, Tua gets hurt, then you can go with a young guy. But the Dolphins can win games with Teddy Bridgewater if he has to come in for a game or two because of the playmakers they put around them and, of course, their defense. So I think in that case, no. I think you want to keep Teddy around for that. But I do think long-term, I think Skylar could be that guy. I mean, there's a reason they kept him on the roster.
Yeah. I'll say this, Alex, and we'll move on to just in Miami in general before we wrap it up. Or, Marlins, etc. But, and I do have another follow-up question after that. But what you were just saying, I think my prediction is this when it comes to Dolphins quarterback thing. If Tua, if he gets hurt, I think whether it's 2 games, I think Tua will. I don't know who she's talking about. That's I don't know.
This Bobby's grandmother. He said, you look like her brother. Is it Nicky or Harrison?
I'll say what it is. No, but I'll say is if Tua gets injured for 2 games, as you say, I think Teddy's the starter that comes in for those 2 games because you're right, 100%. We have the talent around him to win football games with Teddy because Teddy is a starting caliber player in this league, whether people want to say it or not. But if for whatever reason the season is in the drain, which is highly unlikely, but if the season's falling apart, Tua's not the guy, then I think because especially after what Chris Greer and McDaniel kind of said about keeping Skylar, I think that would be the part where Skylar comes in and starts if the Dolphins are like out of the hunt. I think that's a possibility.
I agree. But again, it's more long-term than it is short-term. Right now, this is right. If there's any time we're having a conversation with the quarterback not Tua, the Dolphins are in trouble. So it's got to
100% agree with that. Yes. Now, my question before we get into just, covering all of Miami sports, got the Heat, got the Dolphins, Marlins, now the Hurricanes, the Panthers. Which one of those teams, in your opinion, your prediction right now, wins the championship first?
You always say the Heat because of their ability, because they're already a championship caliber team, right? They were a shot away last year. They were in the finals 2 years before that. I think the Heat is the obvious answer. I think what the Panthers have done, though, put them in a position. They get things together, and now with a new coach, obviously a new star player, that they could be there. I think the Hurricanes as well are probably, I would say, a year or 2 away. But, from really being a national championship type team, if Mario continues to do what he was planning, I would say in that order. I think the Dolphins only because the Dolphins are there as far as the improvement that they could jump into that conversation as soon as I think next year. Like, I think if the Dolphins play well and Tua is the guy, Dolphins are in the conversation already next year. They might be the favorite. They might be the team. Okay, that's the team that next year wins the Super Bowl. If Tua is anywhere close to what the Dolphins wanted to be. I think this year it's hard to feel that way with the Dolphins because you want to see how these pieces work. You want to see how McDaniel coaches as the year goes on. And that's a little bit of more uncertainty than Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are right now.
And before we go to Miami, and first and foremost, I want to thank everybody listening. Like, subscribe, share with everybody. I want to thank Will also for dedicating time. And we're going to try to make this one quick so you can get on with your night because you've been very gracious with us. I'll say one thing that Cap for Life brought up before I go into Miami. And this is a topic that we talk a lot about in regards to the Tropical Park Stadium with the billionaire George Ruiz. Is that a realistic possibility, Will? You've been, obviously, I'm not saying personal with politicians and all that here, but you've been in those moments in regards to the Marlins Stadium. We understand how that situation played out, the negotiations. Do you feel that's a viable option for a Hurricane Stadium in Tropical Park if it's privately funded?
Not short term, not anytime soon.
Okay.
The Canes have 10 years left on their lease, with Hard Rock.
Okay.
Hard Rock likes having them. The Canes like being there. And it's sort of like, though, where they have to say that, though, because when you have it, like if you're an employer, right, you're employed by somebody, you don't want to say, like, well, I wouldn't leave my employer if the right opportunity came. I'm signing your checks every 2 weeks. So the Dolphins, Hard Rock has a deal with the Canes, so that Dan Radakovich, the Canes are going to say, hey, we got bigger things to worry about than our football stadium. And he's right. They want to keep. Look, Mario. The first thing Mario did when he walked in was looked around the facility, and he looked around and he said, "What the hell is this? What's going on? Like, this is not a Stanley championship team." So I think internally with buildings on campus, not just the field that they have, their little indoor practice facility, but the gym, medical centers, all of things, training stuff. That stuff I think is the priority. To answer your question, like I've in the last couple of months, I've met with John Ruiz, had an interview. Johnny Ruiz, who's kind of spearheading the Tropical Park stuff. They are saying all the right things. They're saying that they're going to be transparent. They're saying obviously that's going to be their money. They're not asking for public money. I think the question becomes if it's like Freedom Park, like they say, are you going to build hotels? Are you going to build shopping centers? Because now you're the domain of private, property, money where profit is made is being put on public land. Is that a disservice to the local resident? Are we dealing with all this again? I think that's a true concern. They have said, to their credit, they're going to be transparent. They said they're going to answer questions. None of this will ever get anywhere if it doesn't get on a referendum and gets voted on by the residents.
Absolutely.
So my point is, there's a lot that needs to happen before it ever gets to that point. Could it be that way in 5 years? That that this conversation is legit? It's really going to happen? Maybe. But I don't think it's anywhere close to being as a real story as maybe it's being made right now, because the Kings have a lot of time left on that lease. They're focused on other things.
And one follow-up in regards to before we go into just a few Marlins questions that I have in my back of my mind, and that Ralph, one of my friends, asked me. You're part, obviously, of the media for 20 plus years in regards to the Heat, and I would say all Miami sports. Do you feel as a member of the media that the national media, not that I would say looks down upon Miami, I'm not going to say they're jealous of Miami, but why is it that we always have this treatment in regards to the Heat, especially when it comes to not only national games, but the perspective, how they always speak about the media, about the Heat in the national media? I'm like, they're not really connected with the Miami front office. Very few people are actually connected with the Miami front office. Why do you feel we have that perception across the nation that it's always like, oh, it's Miami? Or like they always talk down about the Heat, Dolphins, Marlins. Marlins I can understand. But
simple logic, and it's a logic that I think you can teach anybody, and that's that they hate us because they hate us.
Like Billy Joe.
Booyah!
There we go. That's it.
I mean, look, we're easy to hate. We're kind of weather fans. We only show up really when teams win. The Heat not so much have been consistent, but even then, let's put it this way: if the Heat were bad, right, for 2 or 3 years in a row, the arena wouldn't be full.
No.
The arena wouldn't be full. People go to Heat games because they're fun to watch and they're a championship caliber team. But to answer you, I just think that's what it is. I think people truly love to hate Miami, everything we represent, the fast lifestyle, the sun, the fun. LeBron kind of poured gasoline in that fire with I'm going to South Beach. Any kid that's like, a kid from Glade Central signing at FAU, and he's going, I'm going to South Beach, So that it kind of changed, but that's okay. We like to be hated. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's totally comfortable with it.
my Marlins question, Bob, and I'll let you ask after.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
Marlins situation, obviously, I remember watching the first championship. I remember watching the fire sale that came months after. I remember my heart being torn. And then we win again in 2003. I know we signed Carlos Delgado. So there's going to be some competitive, which I give Loria that point. And then there's another sell-off. We have a brand new stadium, new owner with Jeter. The Jeter leaving, that's really a predetermined move. Do you see that being a conflict with the current front office, with the general manager, Ning? The most important question is, do you see Donnie Baseball sticking this out? or are we going to have a fresh voice? I'm not saying anything you heard, not compromising or anything.
No,
Just out of your perception, do you see that there's going to be a new leadership in Marlins baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go right down the line. Donnie's going to be done, and I think he knows that. I think I have all the respect in the world for Don Mattingly. To be transparent, he was my favorite baseball player as a kid. Because I grew up in New Jersey in the early '80s, mid '80s. Before I moved to South Florida, Don Mattingly was king. So the fact that I've been able to cover him, get to know him, he's a great guy. I think he's a good manager. I think he's obviously had success at the level as a player and as a manager. I just think at this point he's longer than any manager in Marlins history. He's won more games than any manager because of the amount of time he's been with the team. I think it's pretty clear that this is done, that they're parting ways at the end of the year. I think Donnie will reassess what he wants to do with his life, go back home to Indiana and figure it out. He's done a great job with the Marlins to me, given all the things you just talked about, all the changes, all the things that he's had to deal with. But I do think there's going to be a change of direction. I think when you look at big picture with Derek Jeter, it depends who you believe. Like everybody's going to say on the story that Derek Jeter left because he had a disagreement with Bruce Sherman. And there's no doubt in my mind, and from what I've been told is that, yeah, Derek Jeter and Bruce Sherman didn't always see eye to eye. But, I mean, does anybody always see eye to eye? Like, no. So I don't buy that that's the legitimate reason. I will say this, guys. When Derek Jeter came on board, I had someone who I trust very much who knows baseball a lot say to me, by the way, it wasn't David Sampson, who I like very much. With David Sampson. But it wasn't David. So I don't want it to be like, some jaded person.
Yeah.
Said to me, he's not going to last more than 5 years. He's going to come in here. He's going to do his 5 years. He's going to do his time. He's going to take his money. He's going to leave. He's going to see that this market just ain't for him. This is not, and I think that's exactly what happened. I think he saw that to be sustainable in this market. I mean, I don't even know if it's payroll or what it is. It's hard, man.
You got to hit on everything.
And hit it a lot. So I think that was part of it. I think there was two things there. I feel terrible for Marlins fans, the ones that are left, because they have a beautiful ballpark. Town can get behind baseball, but they've been so burned by so many bad moves that it's going to take years to really repair the damage done psychologically to Marlins fans to want to make people come to the ballpark consistently. I mean, it's a shame because growing up baseball, and in many ways it still is my favorite sport. It was my passion with my dad, but it's dead in this town. It really is, and it hurts. It hurts to see.
And it hurts so much because we're from the Cuban American community, and this stadium is in the heart of Little Havana. And you go and, like Ralph says here, the World Baseball Classics. My wife's Dominican. We go to the Dominican Republic games.
Back next year, yeah.
That stadium gets wild, and I take my son, I take my family to the games, and it's so sad. Every time I go, I always look at one thing. I always look at the upper deck, and it's always empty. And I see other teams across the nation. They could be dead last, except Oakland. Oakland now, the stands, they're doing other things in the stands. They're not watching baseball games anymore.
Stop.
But it's like,
come on, man.
The product on the field is bad. The product in the stand is pretty good. But it's so sad that it's gotten to the point and now we have a great farm system. We have great arms. But even I was talking to Ralph about it today. He goes, Sandy Alcantara has to be perfect for the Marlins to win. Sandy Alcantara makes one mistake, we lost the game.
2-1. Yeah, and I think it hurts because they don't have any prize prospects hitters. Like there's no Acuna, there's no there's no Tatis on the horizon in the Marlins system that you can get excited about. It sucks. It's the only way to put it. It sucks because you want to hang your hat on something for the future, and they just don't have it.
Do you think we'll go the route of a young manager, rookie manager, or
that was my question? Where would they go?
Oh, sorry.
No. It's perfect.
Given they're leaning toward want to be analytical, leaning toward want to be progressive, leaning toward want to be with young players, I could see them going in that direction. They went the route of Donnie, a proven manager, and that was Loria. By the way, that was all Loria. Loria loved Don Mattingly, and the only reason Don Mattingly kept his job because new ownership usually says get out of here, we want a new guy.
This does Jeter.
Loved Don Mattingly. I loved the Yankees and loved Loria was a Yankee fan too. So Donnie hung around through all those changes, and to his credit, did a really good job. But I think they're going to look for a new voice, new direction. It could very well be a young guy. I would lean towards saying yes because the way baseball's changing. More often than not, managers get hired now or no-name manager. You're like, wait, let me look at where's this guy from? He was the pitching coach and this, or the minor league advisor and this team, and because of the analytics, because of the way the game is changing and skewing toward more of that than the old school manager with a dip in his mouth that would, get a gut feeling like Jack McKeon on whether,
Yes.
So it's different.
what Clutch is saying is true here. We got Khalil Watson coming up. So he's an exciting prospect. See, and it's funny, we can have a great middle of the field with Jazz and Khalil. Like, we can have an entertaining team if we embrace that aspect too.
Yeah,
And especially Miami.
Yeah, Khalil's obviously a talented prospect. You know, he's a guy who's got all the tools to be a great player. But I just don't know if they got a guy that's just ready to step in and be that guy. They definitely don't have like a 30, 40 home run. Even JJ Bleday gets a call up, and I don't even care too much about batting average, but even the power numbers, he's not a 30, 40 home run guy. He's a 20, 25 home run guy in a full season if he stays healthy and develops. And you need big boppers in the lineup. You can't win with 15, 20 home run guys. You got to have power, and the Marlins just don't have a lot of that in their system.
And Garcia and Soler, this signing this offseason, it kind of like just didn't pan out how we envisioned it. And for some reason, it's been unfortunate. Some of the even Aguilar was probably our biggest pop hitter, and for a period of time, we didn't even have to move him to the chance when we had to move him, and then we just designated him for assignments. So I mean, hopefully they write it out.
They were complementary guys. You needed to sign a big bat in between them. Like if you had a big bat right in the 4, and you had Soler around them, those guys are much better with that protection.
Of course.
The Marlins kind of skip the middle steps, like getting the big. And that's when you're duct taping stuff together, you're going to get what happened this season on offense.
Bob, before you can wrap it up for me, I just gotta have one thing. This is the last we'll squeeze out of Will Manso. Inter Miami. Obviously, we're a young team. We have the Beckham following. We got the mass monetary backing. I don't know if Maurice Claret is still there. In regards to obviously the new stadium, very problematic situation here in Miami. I won't touch that topic. But do you feel down the line in regards to star potential in their older age, the Messi, Ronaldo? Do you see that as a viable option? Obviously, it comes with ownership with Inter Miami, a big profit for them as well. Do you see that happening within the next 2 to 3 years, or do we wait for the stadium to be built and then inaugurate that?
No, I think it happens. I think they're going to get that caliber of player star, and David Beckham kind of spearheads it. And we talk about Jeter. Beckham, to his credit, has been around for a decade now. I mean, it's like he was here all those years ago when they started the talks and waited.
He fought for it. He fought for it, man.
Yeah, and by the way, he's at practice all the time. He goes to games.
Yeah.
He's obviously a busy guy. He's got commercials and things he's got to do with, and businesses that he has to tend to, and family, of course. But he's around. I give him credit. But to answer your question, I think Inter Miami's got a plan. Jorge Mas doesn't just want to sign up washed up old stars, but he also wants to sell tickets.
Of course.
So, I do think you're going to see that caliber of player at some point in the next 3-4 years as it pushes in toward Freedom Park, because you can't have a Freedom Park and say our best players, we're going to have DeAndre Yedlin. Yeah, great. But that doesn't sell tickets. Like, you need to have stars in this town. I mean, we talked about all the other teams. So I do think that will happen at some point soon.
Awesome.
Bob?
No, I was just going to say very quick, and then we could close it there as we get close to the hour. And again, Will, thank you so much, brother, for coming on. This is exciting. You brought up the Panthers, and I'm not an aficionado with hockey and all, but they made a major trade, got a young star. You said besides obviously Miami Heat, because that is usually the obvious answer just because of the pedigree and the players they have on the roster. But you said the Panthers are the more likely team to win a championship. What did you think about their offseason moves? What stood out to you? And do you think, obviously, if we talk about a team being a year out like the Dolphins or the Marlins being way out, is this the season for the Panthers to win it all? Do you think?
Well, I think last year with Huberdeau and Barkov and the pieces they had, everybody thought this is the year. Then all of a sudden the move in Kachuk, and you still have Barkov and a new coach. And I think there are a lot of moving parts, but I think the foundation of what the Panthers are trying to do is there. I like what they did in the sense that sometimes teams get stale, right? Like, you keep trying and trying and trying, and even though you have talent, even though you have success, it's clear that it's not going the direction where it's going to end with a championship. And the fact they can pull the plug, get a young player in his early to mid-20s, that sign him to a long-term deal, where Huberdeau was supposed to, in his 30s, in that range, and really build around that and Barkov. I like where they're going. I think this team will be a contender again. I think this team will be one of the better teams in the league again. Last year, winning the President's Cup and not even getting, and just winning one series. First time they won a series in 20-plus years. That's exciting. But it was clear they fell short of what you thought they were going to be. So I do think they're heading in the right direction. And after the initial shock of the Huberdeau trade, I think it's clear that they have a plan. And we talked earlier about McDaniel's plan. They have a plan. They're trying to really piece these guys together. They know what the window is. They're not going to get stale and keep trying the same thing that's not working year in and year out.
Awesome. Will, again, I just want to thank you for myself. It's an honor talking to you, watching you as I grew up in Hialeah, and now we're talking to you. It's awesome. And I hope that's not the last time, brother. Thank you so much.
Guys, you guys, we'll talk again, hopefully toward Heat playoff time.
There we go. Like Bobby just said, man, I want to thank you, Will. Personally, it's a great honor to have you. When I told Bobby that, Will probably is going to come on, he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, he'll come on with us. And it's truly a blessing, man.
I'm glad we found the time, guys. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Clutch, any words you want to say, man, to Will?
No, man, it's good to hear from you, Will, again. I know we've interacted sometimes here and there on Twitter. It's good to talk to you in person. And
to hear your voice.
That's God. Morgan Freeman God.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Miami. It's been amazing. I want to thank Bobby, obviously Will. He had to go. It was a great moment for us. And Bobby, father of the network, Will Manso, our guest of honor today. Once again, Miami, we love you. Happy Hump Day. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.